I never thought I'd be sharing such a personal story, but I need to get this off my chest. It's about my husband and our 3 daughters. Before I dive in, I want to make it clear that my husband is a good man who has always provided well for our family. He's never been unfaithful, abusive, or dishonest. But there's one issue that's been tearing our family apart. He has a favorite child. We have 3 teenage daughters, Rachel, 17, Emma, 14, and Sophie, 12. The favoritism wasn't always there. In fact, during their early years, he was equally loving and attentive to all of them. Everything changed when Sophie was 4. She developed a severe case of meningitis and nearly died. During her 3-week hospital stay, she constantly asked for her dad, barely letting him leave her side. That experience created a special bond between them, but it also marked the beginning of a painful pattern. As the years went by, my husband started showing clear preference for Sophie. At first, it was subtle, spending more time with her, being more lenient with rules, or getting her special treats. But as our older girls grew up, they began noticing these differences. The pain in their eyes whenever their father would drop everything for Sophie's smallest request was heartbreaking. I tried talking to him about it countless times over the years. "You have 3 daughters," I'd remind him. "They all need their father equally." He would listen and make short-lived efforts to be more involved with Rachel and Emma, but he'd always slip back into old habits, gravitating toward Sophie. The situation finally reached its breaking point last week. Emma had a virtual academic awards ceremony at her school. With everyone still doing online learning due to health restrictions, it was basically a big video call where students would receive recognition for their achievements. There was also going to be a raffle for prizes, including a laptop Emma really wanted. Parents could join from separate devices to give their kids extra entries in the raffle. I had work that day, so I couldn't attend. I asked my husband to join the call. It would take less than an hour, and he was working from home anyway. I reminded him multiple times, sent him the link, and double-checked that he knew the time. He assured me he'd be there. Well, he wasn't. When I checked in later to ask how it went, he claimed he got the time wrong. I was furious but decided to wait until I got home to discuss it. That's when I discovered the real reason he missed it. Sophie had begged him to take her for ice cream, and instead of asking her to wait just 30 minutes, he chose to skip Emma's ceremony entirely. When I got home, I found my oldest daughter's car in our driveway. I walked into our house to find Sophie in the living room, clearly upset. When I asked what was wrong, she told me Rachel and Emma were upstairs fighting with their father. Then she dropped the bomb about the ice cream trip during Emma's ceremony. As if on cue, Rachel, Emma, and my husband came down the stairs. Rachel was carrying Emma's overnight bag, and they were all shouting. Rachel announced she was taking Emma to stay at her apartment for a while. I tried to intervene, saying Emma could spend the night, but couldn't just move in with her sister. My husband protested, insisting Emma needed to stay so they could talk privately. That's when Rachel exploded. "Everyone knows Sophie is your favorite. You couldn't even tell her to wait half an hour for ice cream? Do you know how many of Emma's events you've missed while never missing a single one of Sophie's?" I tried to calm everyone down, suggesting we all sit and talk, but Emma joined in. "I'm tired of being second best. I want to go with Rachel." My husband started apologizing, claiming he doesn't play favorites, that he just made a mistake. Rachel challenged him to name the last time he did something with just her, or Emma. He mentioned 2 occasions, but Rachel quickly pointed out that Sophie had been there both times. "But you've taken 3 weekend trips with just Sophie in the past year," Emma added, her voice breaking. She was right. I had forgotten about those trips myself. Sophie, who had been quietly watching everything unfold, started crying and ran upstairs. My husband moved to follow her, but Rachel's words stopped him cold. "See? You've got 3 upset daughters, and you still run after Sophie." When he tried to defend himself by saying Sophie was more sensitive than the others, Rachel delivered the final blow. "You want Sophie to be your only daughter so badly? Fine. You got your wish. Don't call or text either of us anymore." Emma added quietly, "You already act like we don't exist anyway." I've never seen my husband's face crumple like it did in that moment. The reality of what he'd done finally seemed to hit him. I was crying too, watching my family fall apart. I wanted my girls to stay so we could work things out, but Emma begged to leave. Rachel hugged me, promising to take care of her sister, and call me the next day. As much as it killed me, I let them go. Emma needed space from her father, and I couldn't deny her that. My husband went to the kitchen and broke down. In our 20 years of marriage, I'd rarely seen him cry. The thought of our 2 older girls wanting nothing to do with him had finally cracked his facade. Part of me wanted to scream at him. I'd warned him about this for years. All he had to do was show up for Emma this one time. But seeing him so broken, I took a different approach. I told him I loved him, but I loved our children more. If he didn't fix things with our girls and start treating them equally from this moment forward, I would be divorcing him. His only response was a whispered, "I don't want to lose my family." Then, true to form, he started to get up to check on Sophie. I stopped him, saying I would handle it. For once, he needed to think about his other daughters. I spent the next hour consoling Sophie, assuring her that her sisters didn't hate her, that their anger was directed at their father, not her. She was upset that they weren't answering her texts, and I explained they needed time. That night, for the first time in our marriage, my husband slept in the guest room. The next morning, something changed in my husband. When I went to check on him, I found him researching family therapists on his laptop. He hadn't slept all night. In 2 decades of marriage, I'd never seen him take initiative like this. He found a therapist on his own, without me suggesting it. He chose an older man with grown children, saying he felt this therapist would understand his situation better. The therapist helped him draft a message to our older girls. My husband insisted on writing it himself, though both the therapist and I reviewed it. He wrote about how sorry he was, acknowledging years of mistakes. He told them he'd started therapy and hoped they'd give him a chance to be better. He promised to drop everything whenever they were ready to talk. Emma called me a few hours later, asking if her dad really wrote the message himself. When I confirmed he had, both she and Rachel admitted it felt good to know he cared, but they needed time. Meanwhile, my husband struggled. 2 weeks passed with no response from the girls. One night, he broke down completely, convinced he'd lost them forever. His relationship with Sophie changed too. Following his therapist's advice, he started giving her space instead of constantly initiating activities with her. Surprisingly, Sophie handled it well, making me realize how much of their special bond had been driven by my husband's behavior rather than mutual need. The breakthrough came after about 3 weeks. Emma texted her father, asking to talk. True to his word, he immediately took the day off work. I took Sophie to my mother's house so the girls could speak freely. Rachel and Emma came over, and we all sat in the living room for what turned into a 3-hour conversation. My husband did everything right. He admitted to his favoritism instead of making excuses. He talked about his therapy journey and his realizations about how he'd justified his behavior. He asked for one chance to prove he could change, and to my surprise, both girls agreed, though Rachel admitted she was scared to hope. When he asked what they needed from him, Rachel said she wanted genuine effort, not forced attention. Emma just asked for a hug, which turned into all of us crying together. My husband suggested family counseling, and though the girls were hesitant, they agreed to try. Now we're taking small steps forward. Emma moved back home. We've designated Saturdays as family day. My husband has started playing online games with Rachel. It's their way of connecting while she's away at college. He wanted to buy Emma the laptop she missed out on at the ceremony, but his therapist wisely suggested waiting until their relationship heals more, so it doesn't feel like a bribe. We're still working with family counselors, and my husband continues his individual therapy. He says it's helping him in ways beyond just our family issues. I still have moments of doubt, wondering if this change will last, but this is the most effort I've ever seen him make. The other day, I heard all 4 of them laughing together on a video call, and it brought tears to my eyes. This is what I've wanted for so many years. I know we have a long way to go. I've made it clear to my husband that if he reverts to his old ways, I'll follow through on my promise to leave. But for now, I'm cautiously optimistic. My daughters have given their father one chance to make things right, and he seems determined not to waste it. Sometimes it takes almost losing everything to realize what you had all along. I just hope this story has a happy ending, not just for my husband, but for all of us. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.